Thank you for joining me today, Notre Dame fans. The topic of discussion is, of course, Jack Nichols' decommitment and what is next in the tight end board for the tight end board. Excuse me. Jack Nickel, was it a surprise decommitment? I'm not sure. You, of course, knew Notre Dame was going to continue pursuing Holden Staes and Eli Raridon, two tight ends, Holden Staes from Georgia and Eli Raridon from the state of Iowa. Now, Raridon is a Notre Dame legacy. His father played in the early 2000s alongside Brady Quinn. And then Holden Staes, former Penn State decommit, picked up a Notre Dame offer shortly after he decommitted from the Nittany Lions. And ever since then, Notre Dame has looked to be in the driver's seat on that one. So Jack Nickel decommitted. He likes Notre Dame. I think there was a lot of mutual love, but Notre Dame had better targets, and they weren't afraid to say, I'm sorry, I'm not sure how much playing time you're going to get. In no way did Notre Dame drop Jack Nickel. I want to make that clear. I know that. They did not drop Jack Nickel, but they said, you know what? I don't know how much you're going to play, and I feel like you'd have better opportunity elsewhere, whether that be wherever in the country. I believe his dad played ball at Stanford. So Stanford seems to be in there. I know Michigan reached out. Vanderbilt looks kind of interesting. High academic school in the South. So just want to get that out there. Jack Nickel, all love for him. He's a great player. Sad to see him go. But the names to know are, of course, Holden Staes and Eli Raridon, like I just said. But Oscar Delp, the number one tight end in the country, according to various ranking sites. Oscar Delp has seemed to be a Georgia lean for quite some time, but John McNulty and him exchange follows. John McNulty doesn't follow very much anyone on Twitter, and he followed Oscar Delp. There's been a little bit of contact. I could see Oscar Delp potentially landing an offer. Now, if that means Notre Dame will push hard, I'm not sure. He is a high academic kid, values Notre Dame. This is what Notre Dame looks for in a tight end. He's from Georgia. Michigan's probably running second in that recruitment. So, of course, he's open to leaving the South and going to the Midwest, playing somewhere cold, etc. But we will see if that ends up happening. But if Oscar Delp does get an offer, I would expect Notre Dame to at least make a slight push early, see what happens. Now, if McNulty and Reese and Kelly see that, hey, maybe Oscar Delp would come on an official visit and maybe we could push to land him, they might land him. But then you say, well, Eli Raridon, he doesn't want to wait. He might as well go to Iowa. I do think they'll land Holden Staes sooner rather than later. I could see him popping in the next 3 to 4, maybe even 5 weeks. So I just want to say that now. Holden Staes, I'm pretty sure, is locked up. But Raridon, of course, he's not as high as Staes is on their board. Everyone at Notre Dame, I think, wants Staes more than Raridon, but they'd like Raridon more than Nickel, of course, because they just did not. Nickel just left, and Raridon's still on the board and still a top target for them. Not as high as Staes. So let's say Staes commits by the end of April or by mid-May. I really do think he will commit before he takes his official visits this summer. And I believe the only one he has lined up is for Notre Dame sometime in June. But if Holden Staes commits, then you have, all right, Raridon. But let's say Raridon. I think Raridon right now is in a tight race between Iowa and Notre Dame. He took an unofficial visit to Iowa State. I don't think the Cyclones are that big of a deal. Where he's from in Iowa is the main school. They have just a bigger history. I think it will come down to Iowa and Notre Dame. Don't really worry about Arizona State, Tennessee, Iowa State. They're not going to be big factors. It's Iowa and Notre Dame here. But let's say he says, you know what, Iowa's going to let me commit right now. I'm done with this BS. I'm just going to end my recruitment, focus on my season. I just want to play ball and not have to worry about recruiting. He could really pop to Iowa. I could see that happening. And then Notre Dame says, oh, wow, well, we just lost Nickel. And now we're down to Staes. Now you have to think Notre Dame felt good that they were in the driver's seat by a good bit for Raridon. What happened with Nickel was going to happen. But maybe they say, hey, shoot, let's offer Oscar Delp and let's try to make a move there. Worst case scenario, we take one tight end and we get a transfer tight end, or we just take 2 or 3 tight ends in 2023 because they just took 2 tight ends last year in Mitchell Evans and Kane Barong. It's not the end of the world if they only take one, guys. It's really not. I think they were only going to take one tight end for a long time. It was going to be Jack Nickel and Jack Nickel alone. And then John McNulty sent out some new offers to Stays and Rardon, and it was looking like 2 tight ends. Some said it would be 3. I never 3 is just crazy. 3 tight ends. I'm not sure if a P5 school has done that in the last few years. That's kind of nuts. But if there's a school to do it, it's Notre Dame too. Notre Dame constantly runs the 2, even 3 tight end sets. They love to get their tight ends involved blocking and passing wise. So want to get that out there. Right now, though, I'm really confident Stays commits here shortly. Rardon, I'm pretty confident with 2. And then Oscar Delp is a name to know, especially if he gets an offer. That's the video, guys. Thank you for watching. That is it for me.